Abnormalities. They range from the cute and relatively harmless to horrifyingly vicious. Immortal monsters fished out of the deepest recesses of humanity's collective unconsciousness. I'll be using all 3 games in the series, as well as the official ProjectMoon art books to come to conclusions in this video. The official Lobotomy Corporation art book holds a lot of lore not explicitly listed in the game and will be referenced heavily in the upcoming discussions. Abnormalities were introduced in ProjectMoon's first game, Lobotomy Corporation, a game aptly advertised as a roguelite monster management simulation. Most abnormalities were produced by the namesake company Lobotomy Corporation, an energy manufacturing megacorporation. Note that I said most. More on that in another video. Abnormalities are theoretically immortal, generally volatile, and almost always self-serving entities. In Lobotomy Corporation, it's up to you, the player, to direct your employees to interact with these mysterious creatures and gather as much information as possible while extracting a valuable resource known as Ankh Fallen, an energy source and the flagship product of Lobotomy Corporation. Your goal is to, with minimal casualties, extract your daily quota of energy each day. Minimal casualties, that is, rarely zero. Generally easy to spot at a glance, unless they don't want you to. They would best be avoided by anyone with a shred of common sense. Aside from one sin. All my homies love one sin. There are 2 types of abnormalities you can encounter: monster abnormalities and tool abnormalities. Monster abnormalities are living, breathing entities more akin to the common definition of being alive. Tool abnormalities are typically objects that can be equipped, carried, or utilized for some sort of beneficial outcome, though usually at a rather heavy cost. Each abnormality is assigned a classification code, categorizing them based on an admittedly confusing albeit defined format. Well, I say defined, but as a cautionary note, most of this information has not been explicitly defined, though the method of categorization is intuitive enough, following trends between each category, that it's very likely accurate. When first observing an abnormality, before you learn its name, you'll notice this code. The method of identification is as follows: a letter identifying the source of its origin, a number that likely indicates the shape of the abnormality, and a second number which acts as a unique identifier that's not shared among any other abnormality for the purposes of simplicity. It is possible that this number may refer to the order of creation for each abnormality, though that's just a theory. So now that we've roughly covered what makes up a classification code, we'll delve deeper into what each portion of the code defines. The letter of origin has 5 observed options, ranging from F, T, O, D, and M. Abnormalities with the identifier of F refer to forgotten tales, folklore, oral tradition, and legends, such as these creatures that closely resemble Little Red Riding Hood, Rudolph and Santa's Sleigh, Snow White's Apple, and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. The identifier of T refers to intense personal experience, horrific fear, and emotions. Examples of this identifier include abnormalities like a radio frequency that induces violence, a music box that makes the listener feel a sense of melancholic calmness, and a large humanoid that embodies regret and violence. O refers to beyond the boundaries between the river and the ocean, unknown causes, natural occurrence, manufactured, and the well. If you feel lost by that description, you have every right to be. It's vague, albeit broad, while simultaneously being a contradictory statement. This term requires deeper inspection, which I will cover in future videos. Though some abnormalities that fall into this category include a smattering of magical girls, multiple mysterious birds, and a Lovecraftian creature of undeterminable appearance that induces insanity upon being viewed. So, I mean, if that doesn't prove how broad this category is, I don't know what does. But anyway, on to D. D refers to donor abnormalities created by backers during the development of Lobotomy Corporation. These abnormalities are given the identifier of D regardless of whether or not they may fit inside a previously stated classification. And finally, M. M isn't directly defined and isn't given to any abnormality in either Lobotomy Corporation or Library of Ruina, though it is present on a small select few abnormalities that are shown in Limbus Company. The Brazen Bull, My Form Empties, and Doomsday Calendar all have this unique identifier. It's possible it means mythical or mythological, as each one of these abnormalities have some sort of tie to mythology. As of right now, however, we have no way to confirm. And that covers all of the letter identifiers. The second character refers to the shape of an abnormality, ranging from 1 to 9. There's quite the list, so I'll only briefly cover each number. Number 1 includes humanoids, or things that are human in nature, but not always. Sometimes frog. Number 2 includes animals, or things that are animal adjacent. Number 3 includes entities derived from religion, or alien entities, as in foreign to this world, not little green Martian people. Number 4 includes inanimate objects, though not the same as tool abnormalities. Stuff like a pair of shoes or a teddy bear, as well as multiple plant-like creatures. And this pink llama, who is sometimes a pink lady. Number 5 includes machines and artifacts, and sometimes living structures like Baba Yaga in Limbus Company. Number 6 is a little harder to define. I'm not actually sure what this refers to, as the only ones assigned to this number are 1.76 megahertz, which is that violence-inducing frequency I mentioned earlier, Nothing There, which is an entity bent on mimicking humans, and KQE1J23, an incomplete robot entity derived of flesh and wire. I personally fail to see what relates each of these abnormalities together. If you see a trend, comment below. I'd be interested in connecting the dots. Anyway, number 7 is breaching tools, as in a typically inanimate object turned animate and capable of escaping containment. At least, that's our best guess. Only one abnormality is known to have this number assigned, and that's the only thing that would be unique to them that wouldn't put them in any other category. Onwards to number 8, this is a little unique, as it hasn't yet been used by an abnormality. Number 8 has only been assigned to Picatula, which are an enemy type found in Limbus Company. While these little guys aren't abnormalities, they are abnormality adjacent. They certainly fit the title of monster, though they are not abnormalities in the traditional sense. They share a few similarities, sure, but they are certainly distinct in their own right. On second thought, I'm not actually sure how to say Picatula. We know they are sin creatures, judging by their Korean name, and peccatum is the Latin word for sin, so perhaps it's pronounced Pecatula? I'm not sure. If you know, let me know. Anyway, moving on to 9, this number is reserved for tool abnormalities. That's it. All the tool abnormalities belong in here. There's really no bells or whistles attached to this one. And that concludes the first number identifier. The second number identifier is a unique number given to each abnormality, similar to the numbers assigned to Pokemon in the Pokédex to maintain order. That's what makes up the whole structure of a classification code. As an example, if we were to look at this abnormality, Scorched Girl, we would be able to tell that she is something akin to folklore, human, and the second abnormality in the Codex. There did used to be a fourth identifier which correlated to the risk associated with each abnormality. This has since been removed from the codes, but the idea remains and is implemented elsewhere. The level of threat associated with each abnormality is categorized as risk levels, which are defined in the Manager's Manual. This manual is a collection of helpful tips and tricks for beginner managers. We'll be using this book to help define the danger levels of abnormalities, as well as a few other tidbits later on. There are 5 levels of risk, starting at the safest, Zain, and ending at Aleph, the most dangerous. Zains are classified as having little to no aggression, causing the least harm to your employees. Not only is the damage usually minuscule, but Zain abnormalities may even provide a positive effect, such as HP recovery, an increase to your core stats, involuntary baldness, and even a free and delicious carbonated beverage with no immediately apparent downsides. Taking a notch up on the ladder, we reach Tet. The manual tells us that while they are more dangerous than Zain, following the workplace guidelines associated with each abnormality should prohibit excessive harm. While there's a couple of normalish creatures, such as this lonely grandma who gives you a gun, a fair sum of Tet abnormalities are abstract entities or objects which could be easily mishandled and cause havoc in the wrong hands, both to the user and to others. Continuing on, Hey abnormalities are where things start to get considerably more dangerous. These abnormalities are indicated by being capable of killing multiple employees with relative ease should you fail to work sufficiently. The manual cheekily points out that there's no need to be concerned though, as your excellent management will keep them in check. Now at 4 out of 5, VAV abnormalities are incredibly dangerous and carry devastating force. Despite being so high on the risk hierarchy, VAVs are the most abundant of abnormalities in Lobotomy Corporation. I suppose that just goes to show how dangerous your typical abnormality is. It would be my personal recommendation that if you ever encounter any abnormality you're unfamiliar with, you should avoid it like the plague, as there is a good chance it could obliterate you. There is not a single abnormality in this category that should be taken lightly. And finally, Aleph, the rarest and most dangerous type of abnormality. Where VAVs are capable of Kamehameha waves, the Aleph enters Ultra Instinct Frame 1. Classified as the most dangerous, the manual notes that you should devote as much concentration and attention as possible to this risk level. You'll be thankful if the abnormality is suppressed without ravaging entire departments. And then in parenthesis, please do not take our warning as an exaggeration. While abnormalities are dangerous across all risk levels, it's not to say that they are always outright aggressive. Some can be rather friendly, willing to hold conversations with you and occasionally even offer their services and cooperate with you, albeit at a cost. What you choose to interact with all boils down to one thing, however: energy. While it might be tempting to try and manage only low-risk abnormalities, they produce less Ongfallen on average while working with them. In order to fulfill your ever-increasing quota of daily energy, you'll be forced to take greater risks as the game progresses, or risk being unable to proceed. Easier said than done, I suppose, cause these are monsters, aren't they? Sort of. The art book describes abnormalities as monsters, gods, humans, or other myriad possibilities. In any case, they originate from humans and are created from humans. It's a pretty vague, broad description, admittedly, but how is it possible to extract energy from them? It's not as though you can walk up to any person on the street and simply plug into them like an outlet, can you? As manager, we seem to need this chemical called Ongfallen, but what exactly is Ongfallen? Well, Ongfallen is not just some fantasy world chemical, it exists as a real chemical produced in our bodies. Ongfallen is a natural chemical made by the brain that helps regulate pain and stress. It's a type of endorphin which acts a lot like a painkiller, sort of similar to morphine. Abnormalities produce a lot of this stuff, which can be extracted and bottled up into special containers, aptly coined Ongfallen boxes, and later refined into energy. The process of working with any particular abnormality varies between each one. Managerial guidelines are provided to help you understand the do's and don'ts associated with each abnormality. But what you and I would refer to as work is a rather broad term when referring to taking care of an abnormality. You have 4 types of actions associated with work types that fall across 4 virtues. Those virtues are fortitude, prudence, temperance, and justice, which translate to instinct, insight, attachment, and repression. Quote from the book: "Abnormalities are delicate and profound at the same time. Working with them is like trying to satisfy a picky child, but with a cost." There are many different abnormalities. Some resemble humans, and others look like inanimate objects. Regardless of appearance, all abnormalities carry basic desires and a will. Following the guidelines set in the art book, instinct is a work to satiate psychological needs. It requires physical contact. We may supply nutrients or clean the abnormality for hygiene. The proper procedure for each abnormality is located in its manual, but there's no need to know all the details. You can leave the dangerous and complicated processes to the agents. As this work involves touching the abnormality frequently, agents need to show bravery and fortitude. In short, touchy-touchy equal big owie, which indicates strong body, be good employee. There's insight, which is a work to improve living conditions. Containment rooms need to be in optimal condition. Meticulous management is required. Actions like the removal of foreign substances, ventilation to provide fresh air, and choosing relaxing music. Some abnormalities may prefer to live in filthy and unpleasant conditions. As appropriate changes must be made to satiate abnormalities, agents need intellect and prudence. In short, be smart or get smashed. Smashed equal bad employee. Third is attachment. Attachment is a work to satiate social needs. All abnormalities carry desires and a will regardless of appearance. This includes social needs. In attachment work, an agent acts as a playmate or companion. Agents need to show temperance in this process. If they cross the line, there's no going back. In short, make friends, not fiends, otherwise you may end up as an emotional support snack. And finally, repression. Repression is a work to restrain existence. While the previous works focus on handling desires, repression work stifles them. Abnormalities are far from perfect. They may fail to control their desires and can and will go berserk. Rage, sadness, and/or joy need to be regulated through repression. We advise against trying to know the procedure for this work. Agents performing this work need justice. This is different from the usual petty sense of justice. This is the ability to make definite judgment. Agents need to make all decisions objectively and rationally to control the pace of the work. Otherwise, they will be eaten, either by the abnormality or by themselves. It's important to select the right method of working with an abnormality. If you attempt to perform a work that does not satisfy them, they'll show significant resistance that could result in fatal injury or death, or worse, the death of many. The abnormalities are capable of more than just physical harm, but psychological harm as well. Lobotomy Corporation sets definitions for 4 damage types: red, white, black, and pale. Red damage is your typical "ouch, my bones are broken" damage type, physical pain inflicted by physical force. White damage represents damage to an individual's psyche, which may range from developing nightmares to permanent trauma to a mental breakdown followed by suicide. Black damage is rather complicated, attributed to eroding a target's being. That is described as dark thorns burrowing into their body and brain. Mechanically, it is a combination between red and white, dealing both types of damage simultaneously. And finally, pale damage. Pale damage is equated to death itself and targets the soul. Armor or virtues provide little to no resistance against pale damage. Having a strong mentality or having a shredded body will do nothing for you in the face of death. Pale damage is the rarest form of damage, and certainly the most lethal. During work with an abnormality, you'll obtain 2 types of boxes: PE boxes and NE boxes, positive and negative energy. When an abnormality feels satisfied, it releases positive Onkfallen. When it reacts poorly to your work, it produces negative Onkfallen, which is dangerous and will harm anyone currently working with the abnormality. Well, I don't believe it's clarified anywhere whether or not negative Onkfallen can be used as an energy source, or if it's even valuable at all. It's certainly detrimental and is boxed up and then stored or disposed of elsewhere. What's unique about these boxes is that they aren't exclusively used for energy, but are also used by the company in various other ways. See, each abnormality produces an archetype of Onkfallen unique to themselves. NE boxes accumulate into ordeals, which we'll touch on in another video, while PE boxes can be refined further and used to extract physical armaments, both armor and weapons. These armaments are widely referred to as E.G.O, which stands for Extermination of Geometrical Organ, but everyone just calls it E.G.O. E.G.O gear follows the same tiers as abnormality, ranging from Zion to Aleph. E.G.O gear is incredibly powerful, even at the lower tiers, and typically heavily resembles the abnormality it was extracted from. E.G.O gear can turn a typical employee into a total powerhouse, which is a requirement for when things go wrong. See, particularly vengeful or aggressive abnormalities can breach containment and start causing havoc. Without the use of E.G.O gear, you don't stand a chance against any abnormality. However, while the benefits of wielding E.G.O gear looks enticing at first glance, it's not without considerable risk. Each piece of E.G.O gear is a physical manifestation of the will of the abnormality it was extracted from. As a result, the gear reflects the will of the abnormality and imposes that will upon the user. Those who are unprepared, unfit, or weak-willed can easily be influenced and consumed by the gear itself. This process is known as E.G.O corrosion and manifests itself as side effects that would commonly be associated with the abnormality any such gear is derived from. Although rare, should the will of the user align with the abnormality, an E.G.O resonance may occur. In this state, the user draws power from the abnormality directly, borrowing their strength to use as their own. By properly utilizing E.G.O gear, suppressing an abnormality becomes feasible. Should you suppress an abnormality, it'll only temporarily be defeated. Abnormalities are theoretically immortal, after all, and will return to their full strength in time. While not noted in Lobotomy Corporation, in Limbus Company we learn that when an abnormality is defeated, it turns into its ovate form, an egg, the core of an abnormality, which allows for abnormalities to be easily transported back to containment. So in summary, abnormalities are creatures that heavily vary in danger that can be worked with to create energy, equipment, and are theoretically immortal beings. While this doesn't cover the comprehensive history of an abnormality, it does classify what an abnormality is, does, and how to handle them. As you can see just from a brief overview of abnormalities, this leads into a myriad of other topics and concepts, both with abnormalities and the setting as a whole. There's still more to cover in relation to abnormalities. What is their origin? How are they created? Were they all created in Lobotomy Corporation? There'll be more to come, more to document, and more to read. But for now, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. May you find your book in this place.